Welcome to Every Child Belongs. I'm Kim Botto, an adoptive mom, grandma, an advocate for kids and teens with disabilities, as well as a longtime leader of kids and student ministries. In this show, we explore how we can create spaces where every child feels heard and valued, whether neurodivergent, differently abled, or they've experienced trauma. Every child belongs. We'll hear from educators, parents, professionals, and more, finding practical ideas that help build a compassionate and supportive world for every child. Let's get started. Welcome to Every Child Belongs. Today, I am so happy to have Jamie Finn with us. Jamie, I have learned so much from you over the years.
Oh, so kind.
I mean, I have. I started following you on Instagram. You have Foster the Family, and as an adoptive mom, I'm like, oh, she gets it. She understands me. And then I actually listened to your book, Foster the Family, which is a bestseller. And you gave totally different perspectives on foster care than we typically hear out in the world. And we can talk about that in a minute. You also have a devotional book, Filled, right? Yeah,
That's right.
Filled.
Yep.
40, is it 40 days?
60. Don't
60.
cut it short. It's
60
a full
days.
60.
I've done all 60, Jamie. I've done all 60. And it is a great to just ground you in the work that we're doing and just our foundation. And then also you do an annual retreat, the Field Retreat for foster mamas. You also do foster groups. There are some Foster the Family groups here in the Cincinnati area.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know those leaders. They're great.
Yes.
What a great group.
Yes. So thank you. You also the mama, or you and your hubby are the parents of 7 kiddos. What did I leave out, Jamie? What do you want people to know about you?
I mean, the last one is the most important. No credentials sort of matters at all. I have no credentials, really. I just have the experience of loving my kids and trying to align my heart to God's word as I do it, and then just sharing how I'm struggling and learning along the way.
You know, you do it that beautifully. You talk about no credentials. Let's talk about that for a minute, because I think there are parents who think I'm not qualified to do what I'm doing.
Yeah.
When we talk about foster care, and you also get people who go, oh, I can never do that, or you're so brave, you're so awesome, you're so wonderful. Tell us, what do you need in order to be a foster parent?
That's a great question. I mean, I became a foster parent really ill-equipped. So the simple answer is that by the grace of God, we can hope that he fills in the gaps, because you can never be ready. There is no sort of, let me read these books and follow this checklist and do this training, and now I have what it takes. It's like marriage. It's like work. It's like anything in life. It's so important, and you want to do it so well. And it's a learn as you go sort of thing, a stumble and struggle and then learn. That's, I think, part of the answer of like, just trust God that he's going to fill in the gaps, and be faithful to do some of the work beforehand. I think that becoming basically trauma informed, understanding a little bit about how trauma impacts the brain and how your normal methods of parenting and interacting with humans might not work the same way. I think gathering a community around you, envisioning your people for how they can play a part in this mission just by being your friend, just by being a loving source of encouragement and help. I think that beginning to build a community of people who understand is important. The people that are going to walk alongside you, encourage you when things feel really complicated and confusing. There are definitely things that we can do to prepare. And we have to know that, like, you're just never going to be fully ready.
I read all the books.
Yeah.
I did the things. And then I had these 2 precious daughters who came into our home. And yeah, I agree. We thought, we've raised 3 kids. We've got this parenting thing, but it's different. So talk to that as far as our community. And I'm not talking about foster and adoptive parents who get it in a way that others can't.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But how do we help educate and raise awareness among our community? Because I know some of my friends were confused by our daughter's
Sure.
behavior and
Yeah.
responses.
Yeah. I always say, like, we signed up for this, and in that, signed our people up for it. But they didn't have a say.
Mm.
They didn't have the trainings. They didn't read the books. And now they're along for the ride. And depending on how close they are, I mean, grandparents losing grandchildren is something that, like, our parents simply didn't know they were signing up for. So I think the first thing is to approach with humility and compassion. Just the reality of, like, of course they don't understand. We struggle to understand, and we certainly didn't before we read the books and lived it. Approach with sort of assuming the best, compassion and humility towards them. And then I love to say that we are walking alongside them and sharing from our own weakness and from our own place of learning. So the kind of language I love to use is, you know what, I thought that too. And what I'm learning is when she's screaming, it's actually not because she has a bad attitude and is just being a brat. It's because her fear really flipped her brain into a place of panic, where now
Yes.
what I'm trying to do is calm the body and brain so that then we can have a conversation about the behavior. But instead of, like, you don't get it. You don't, do you have any idea everything they've been through? And why don't you yeah, I get it. It looks like bratty behavior. I totally get why you're saying that. And here's what I'm learning. And here's how I'm trying to educate myself. Here's how God is teaching me and sanctifying me in it. Just really coming alongside people from a place of our own learning, our own weakness, I think is just a kind way to teach people.
That's great. We try to raise awareness. Are there ever times where maybe friendships that we had before, there's seasons. Are there friendships we had before that maybe aren't in our inner circle anymore? And how do we deal with that? Because in talking to parents, I think that's a big hurt.
Yeah.
People that were their people,
Yeah.
all of a sudden don't feel like they're people anymore.
Yeah, I think that can be really hard. I want to be completely honest. That has not been my experience. And so I'm limited in how I can speak to that, because I see that part of the way that God equipped us for this really hard that we're walking through is by the people that we have alongside us. So my reality is that 10 years ago, I was in playgroup dreaming with my best friends about what it looked like to live missionally and talking about that. And now I'm walking with my best friends with our adopted kids, our foster kids. Both of my brothers are foster adoptive parents. My parents have really, like, there's just that reality for me.
Right, right.
I do understand there needing to be distance sometimes in relationships. And we do have that in some close relationships where it's just not a safe place for our kids to struggle, that we are put into a place of sort of fear as parents that we need to control them and we need to get everything under control. And it makes us not great parents to our kids. So I do think we need to be careful that we always have our children's best interests at heart. And that if there are places where we're not able to serve and help and love our kids in the ways they need, then we might need to limit that. And I hope that that doesn't look like breaking of relationships. I think that God's heart for us is,
yes,
but I think it can look like distance in the closeness of that relationship, because we have to protect our kids. They need too much from us for us to be too worried about what other people are thinking and expecting.
Yeah, protecting our kids. That must be a priority. And I think sometimes we forget that. And even early on, let's talk about protecting their stories. Because early on, I didn't share anything. And then I overshared.
Uh-huh.
Jamie, you do an amazing job. Like we were
Oh,
talking
I'm
before, I know
grateful.
you're walking through a hard time with one of your kids and you're vulnerable
Hmm.
on social media, but I had absolutely no clue
Hmm.
what child it was. So
Hmm.
well done, Jamie.
Well, part of that is the perk of having 7 kids. I'm like, well, just pick one. There,
That's right.
But I'm grateful because that is my heart. That's what I really fight for.
So what would you say to parents? How do we be vulnerable,
Yeah.
but also do what is our priority, which is protect our kids, not just physically, but also protect their
Yes.
stories?
I love that question. I think the way that we're vulnerable is that we are vulnerable about us, that we are laying our emotions, our feelings,
Yes.
our fears, our faith in front of people, without the details of our kids. We're showing our hearts and struggle. And if you have one or two of the closest people who unconditionally love your children, and you can send them the crazy picture of the drawer that you found with candy wrappers, and that it can make you feel a little less crazy. I think those people need to have a trauma background. They need to have an understanding that this doesn't change the preciousness of your child. And they need to unconditionally love you and your child. But if you have that person, one, two, uh, I do think there is a gift in laying everything out, in someone coming back to you with truth and encouragement. Hey, you were worried about this thing last year. Remember how, just to realign our hearts to truth and hope. It is a gift if we can lay it out, but we need to be very protective about that.
Small circles.
Now, I will say, I would love to have a conversation with you about this. I wonder your thoughts, because I actually am a proponent of any time someone is caring for our child and we're not there to be the buffer, that we are being somewhat explicit in not necessarily their story, but maybe their diagnosis, maybe their triggers. I think triggers is a big thing. Some of the things
Yes.
that will help them re-regulate. Like, what are your thoughts on that? Because I never want my kid to be out in the world without me and not have someone who sees them through the lens of their story a little bit.
Yeah, I think to me, someone who you have entrusted
Right.
to care for your kid when you're not there, they're in your inner circle.
Right. Right. That's good.
I mean, you're still not going to give every
Right.
single detail, but I love what you said as far as triggers. What you're trying to do is inform them, so if they see a behavior, they might know where it came from
Yeah.
or what a good thing to help them regulate would be. But to me, unless you're dropping them off at somebody different every day of the
Right.
month,
Right.
these people are special people that if we're trusting with their kid, I think we can trust them with their story. And I think it's hard for me. I had to figure it out and figure out
Yeah.
what did they need to know. But the trigger thing is, I think that's brilliant.
Yeah. So, like, I have a kiddo. We just had, a teacher sit down thing, and our hope would be that everyone would just view our kids through the lens of their preciousness and they wouldn't need to know anything else. We're people. And that
Mm-hmm.
isn't always the most realistic way to look at it. But the teacher said to me, your kid is the only one who I can make an excuse for in my mind of why they behave that way. Now, teacher's not trauma informed. This is a general ed classroom, all of that. But I realized, oh, just literally 30 seconds. This child's been exposed to a lot of violence. When anyone is at all physically aggressive, they will lash out in violence. Has completely changed the way this teacher views this child, and now comes alongside them, gets down, whispers all. Like, I didn't need to give her the trauma tips. I just needed to say, hey, things have been really scary. So if things get scary, they might lash out in aggression. And it was just a picture to me of, like, yeah, we wish everyone had all the trauma trainings, and we wish that they were fully equipped for our kids. But even just giving them a 30-second can help build compassion in their heart when really big and scary behaviors happen.
See, you're so much kinder than I am. Because for me, I'm thinking, always assume there's a story. Always assume there's a reason.
And that's why you do what you do. Like, that's it. That's what every caretaker, teacher, they all need to hear that. I fully agree.
But the way you approach the teacher, I agree. That is amazing that little bit of information changed how she approaches your child. So, talking about how kind you are, Jamie, and reading your book, Foster the Family, I totally agree with you on your perspective of the purpose of foster care and also birth parents. But
Yeah.
that is a much different perspective than you hear out in the world. So, talk to me about why we do foster care, maybe why we don't do foster care, and also the birth parents.
When I became a foster parent, it was very much, I'm going to come in, I'm going to teach these kids about Jesus, show them love for the first time in their life, and rescue them from their parents. And maybe, worst case scenario, they have to go back. And then we just pray that, that was really what I came in with. It was a rescue and protect and hopefully keep. Part of why I wrote these books and share is there were not a lot of explicitly Christian perspectives that were informing foster care for me. And so I really was just driven to God's word. Like, okay, God, what does your word say? What is your heart? And the sacredness of the family comes in at the very beginning of scripture.
Yep.
The idea that family is formed in covenant, that family is formed to reflect things about God's character, about his love within the Trinity, about his love for the church, like all of these really rich theological truths started to weigh on me, sort of like, my theology is not informing my mission here. So, what does it look like to hold this rich theology and then apply it to this confusing sort of situation? Um, and the reality is that God created the family. It is sacred to him, his heart. And the reason Jesus came to earth is to make whole what sin has broken. So, I have advocated against kids returning home. I have testified in court. I have done so. I am not like reunification, preservation by any means at any cost. It's like, no, no, no. We have to protect kids. God's heart is also for the vulnerable and for children in a very unique and precious way. But may our hearts be aligned to the idea of him restoring what sin has broken, and have a heart at least that starts with, oh God, this mother, yeah, she's stuck in addiction. She doesn't know you. There are these patterns of abuse, and but God, you love her, and Jesus, you died for her, and you formed this family. You sovereignly placed this child in this mother's womb. I'm going to fight for the restoration of this family, if at all possible. And or if or when it comes to the place where we realize, oh, this child, they need family. Every kid needs family. Then okay, then what does it look like? And then we trust that God's heart for restoration can also be adoption. So it's not either or, but I think it's the starting place. It's the starting with a heart of compassion for the parents, starting with a heart of restoration for the family, and praying for that and supporting that. And then when it becomes clear that that can't happen, then we're grateful for the restoration that can happen in adoption as well.
Yeah, so we're looking at it through a gospel lens.
That's right. And
Yes.
and I assumed at the beginning that looking through foster care through a gospel lens meant turning these kids into disciples of Jesus. That meant, well, of course, I'm the better parent because I have Jesus. So I get to teach them about Jesus. Where the reality is that the gospel is both this message of hope for someone to know Jesus, and it's just the revelation of God's heart for all things to be made new. So we hold both of them. We fight for restoration. We preach the gospel and live the love of Jesus to kids and parents, and we don't separate them from each other.
Right. Have you had situations where you've had a kid in foster care that then has been reunified with their birth parent and you still have a relationship with them?
Yeah.
So tell us about that, because the birth parents, I think sometimes we get confused and we think they're the enemy,
Mm,
and they're not. And that's one thing you did really well in your book,
mm,
communicating. One story, you know it because you wrote the book, but about a mom who was asking for money for personal hygiene products from you.
mhm.
And it helped you and it helped me realize these parents don't have the support we have. I could walk right next door and get what I need.
That's right. Or I have 10 people 100 people I could call for $10.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So talk to us about the birth parents, especially the ones that um, are still in your life.
Yeah. I I love the idea of us being able to remain in our children's lives. And I think that that maybe was my initial motivation. Like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
let me be really kind to this parent so that once they're reunified, they'll still want me around so that I could still see the kiddo. And I think that part of, if we really hold this value of family preservation, part of our mission can be, wow, now we have befriended someone that we know is in need. We pull out from James the widow and orphan, and we've kind of just focused on the orphan part. And the reality is, widow and orphan, they're almost always paired together. And I think that a better modern day translation of that for us, just unofficially, could be like the single mom, the struggling family. I mean, that is the model that we see, is the widow had children that she was not able to meet all of their needs. And so the church and God's people were called to support that mom in caring for her children, not take the children, but support the family. So if we now have gotten to know a child, gotten to know a mom, we've proven, hopefully, for 3 to 18 months, we love you, we're for you, we're caring for your child, and not trying to take them from you, we're not in enmity with you, then hopefully we've built some trust. Now, the reality is we're not in control of that, and sometimes
Right.
they don't want that. But if or when they do, now we have this widow and orphan here. Now we have this vulnerable family here who needs help and support, and we can show up as their support system. We can connect them to local resources. There might be times where we can support them in other ways. We can babysit. We can be a friend. We can be a little bit of like a co-parent there. And it is a beautiful form of foster care and restoration. It it can be hard because
Sure.
you love that child. It can be hard because you can see a family in need and not know when it's your responsibility to get someone else involved.
Yes.
Sometimes kids uh, are returned and they're not safe, and that's
Mm-hmm.
really challenging. So we have a kiddo in our home right now who this is the third time with us. Um, and it looked like for a long time me really practicing what I'm preaching, like, okay, I'm going to get you a hotel room tonight so that you have a place to stay, because this kiddo is going to be removed from you if I don't do this. And then the
Hmm.
wisdom and the faith and
Oh,
the fear and the back and forth, man, there is no handbook. There is no manual to tell you how to do that. It takes dependence on the Spirit. It takes really fighting for compassion and wisdom. But now we're in a place where when this child came back into care, I was the first call from mom. We need you again. Um, and that was an honor. And I hope that that would be the case with any of the kids that I've cared for, that their parents know, oh, Jamie loved my kiddo. Jamie loved me. And so when we need someone, that's my first call.
So how does that affect, you have other kiddos in the house? How does that affect them? And as this podcast about every child belongs, I would think the siblings might then exhibit some behaviors based on these transitions that might be confusing to people.
Yeah, it's definitely a reality of secondary and even primary trauma. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
losing a sibling is trauma. Being exposed or the victim of, for, I think that might be too strong of a word, but of the behaviors of a sibling in the house, those things are traumatizing for other kids. Um, for biological children or adopted children who spent their first couple years with us, the hope is that secure attachment is part of what really serves them in that we have built that in their brain and body, that there is that where there's secure base, there is that felt safety. So I think that's part of the hope. But that's not even our family story, that everyone has that in place. And so it goes back again to that balance of faith and wisdom, of
Mm-hmm.
where do we step out and know, oh yeah, there's sacrifice for everyone involved here. And we are all called, if we're followers of Jesus, to take up our cross and live a life of sacrificial mission and follow him in hard things. So it's calling our children to that in a way that also protects them.
Right.
And I wish there was like a black and white answer there. And I wish I could say that it hasn't affected my kids at all. I know for a fact that it has, and I assume that in many other ways it has. And there's this hope that God's got them, that we have followed him in faith and obedience, and we fought hard to be protective and be wise, and now we are trusting him in that. But it's definitely a reality when you have 7 kids. Like, yeah, it's all, everything is impacting each other, and it's part of what I carry as a mom
Right.
is that fear, that guilt, and really fighting to trust God for that.
How do you do that? Because I talk to a lot of parents who do have, I mean, and I had that when some
Sure.
things were hard in our house. I'm like, oh my gosh, what have I done
Yeah.
to the other children in the house?
Yeah. I mean, I think one thing is a really foundational belief that God uses hard things to bear good fruit
Yes.
in us. That, we are called to consider it pure joy when we face trials. Well, why is that? It must be that there is this upside down reality that we don't see and we don't understand, that God accomplishes really good things in us. And he tells us some of the fruit. He tells us about character and hope. And so I think part of it is that the things that we pray for in our kids, we pray for character, for hope. We pray that they would know Jesus in a deeper, sweeter way, that we have faith that he knows the best ways to get them there. And that
Yes.
sometimes there are things like trials. And that means that we can consider it pure joy, even when it doesn't feel like pure joy.
Right. I, we've talked a lot about the hard stuff, and I want to talk more, and you're going into that now, about the really good fruit that comes out of it. Because I
Mm,
know for me, when God has really grown me and taught me, and even like really strong community, it's happened in the midst of trials and adversity.
that's right.
Like my people are people that, I have called and said, I
Hmm.
need you to come over. Like, no questions.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
hop in
yeah.
their car, they come over, and they go, which kid? Who do I need to
Yep.
take? What do I need to do? If you're loving today's conversation and want to dive even deeper into creating spaces where every child belongs, check out my book, Boundless Hope. It's packed with practical tools, real stories, and powerful insights to help you make a difference. Get yours today. Just head to kimbotto.com or Amazon to order now. Talk about that, about in doing this mission work that you're doing, what have been the benefits to you and to your family?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's talk about kids first,
Okay.
because I think, again, we talk about the things that we want for our kids, and then we build our lives in ways that protect their happiness and make sure they're healthy, and everything is about them having all the good things. And it's like, man, when did what we say we really want for them and believe for them, when is there just this lack of alignment with how we're actually building their lives? So our homes, we can have our home as a mission base where we are actually living out the things that we say we want for them, which is sacrificial love for others and knowing the world doesn't revolve around them, and serving and seeing suffering in a way that you see it but you're not too exposed to it. Like all the things, I mean, it is just such a sweet breeding ground for character in our kids, and for so many of the lessons from scripture that we hope take hold in their heart. So I really see that. I see, my daughter is going to graduate high school next year, and
Amazing.
some of her friends are like, you got to get out of your house ASAP. Like the kids, the craziness, you need space. And she's like, no, like this is part of my mission. This is part of what God is calling me to in my life. And so she's choosing to stay home for college and be a part of our church, and love the local church, be a part of our family and serve her siblings. Um,
Hmm.
I think that part of that is the fruit of this like missional living. It's not just like, sweet, I'm 18, where am I going? Where has the greatest campus life? It's like, I'm a person on a mission. So like, what does that mission look like as an 18-year-old? So I feel like we're even seeing some of the fruit, even as we see some of the hard
Sure.
consequences. And then I think for us, yeah, there's just a reality that God refines. That's just a word we love to say, like,
Right.
refine us. And then it's like, well, what is the process of refining? It
In the
is,
fire.
yes, it is painful. It is burning. It is not what we would choose. So we have to contend for our faith, contend for what we believe in a way that maybe some others don't. I mean, everyone has kids who are going to go out into the world and face hard things, or might experience illness, or but I think as foster adoptive parents, we're not under the delusion that we're in control, that
Right.
we've got everything, like if we just create the right plan, then everything will be okay. Like we were stripped of that delusion. And so something needs to fill that, or else it's just empty and hopeless. And I think what fills that for us is deep hope in the sovereignty of God, deep faith in the goodness of God, a real fight for joy and peace in all things. So I see how God has made me more like Him through means that I would have never written into my story. And that means that they're good. We can actually see them as good. The overwhelming weight of glory that's being achieved in us, it's being achieved through the things that we would never choose.
Right. Yeah, that refinement doesn't happen sitting on a, or typically does not happen sitting on a beach chair
Right?
in beautiful weather.
Right?
It's through the storms. Jamie, I just so appreciate you. I appreciate you give people hope
Mm,
as when we're doing something that isn't the typical, isn't the norm. It's so important to be in community with other people who can help us see there's nothing wrong with me.
yeah.
There's nothing wrong with my kid. It's just really hard right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And I hope that people have those real life people that they're living alongside. And the reality is, not everyone does.
Right.
And even if you are surrounded by foster adoptive families, by people parenting kids with disabilities or different struggles, there are still sometimes, oh, why doesn't their story look like mine? Why does it seem like this family's kind of got it all together? So I can't tell you how often I'll just share something like, yeah, we were in the hospital. Yep. we started this medication, or and people are just like, oh, the permission that
Right.
I feel just knowing, or an investigation. I just, sharing about an investigation is the deepest shame. And so when you just publicly say, yep, this is what happened, then someone else goes like, oh, so this happens to people who I see on the computer and I think are good parents. Um, and I am grateful for the privilege to be able to give people that gift, because I know what it's like to have those feelings and to not have people in your life who understand it. So walk alongside people who are going to love you and speak into your heart and speak truth to you. And
Hmm.
I'm grateful to get to be that for some people.
Yeah. Well, you definitely are, Jamie. I mean, you've been that to me
Hmm.
through social media, and I just really appreciate your work and your vulnerability and the way you model being vulnerable,
Hmm.
sharing the hard, and protecting the kids and the birth parents and so many other people that are involved
Thanks, Kim.
in the story. And just your tidbit as far as, yeah, we share our story.
Yeah.
And if it's not our story, well, then it's not ours to share.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
thank you so much. We end with a couple just rapid fire questions.
Oh, fun. I love
Okay.
rapid fire. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Of course you do. Foster adoptive kinship mamas
I'm like,
are
yes,
ready for
we're always
for
just
anything.
quick answers. Let's go.
Okay. Fun fact about you.
All of my kids are named after, in one way or another, a Jane Austen character. So first name or middle name, every single kid. Do you want to hear the lineup?
Yeah.
So I have an Elizabeth, a Darcy, an Eleanor, an Emma, a Bennett, and then we're adding, this is next week, we're adding an Edward. So that's my lineup so far of my Jane Austen characters.
Of course you would, because you are such an avid reader and
I
you
love
read
to
a
read.
wide variety of things. So tell us a couple books that you have really enjoyed lately or that you'd recommend us.
Okay. I am reading The Anxious Generation right now.
Oh, yeah.
Oof. And I am feeling like evangelistic about it. I'm like, we have this short period where we can like rescue our kids from their brains being hijacked by screens. So I'm loving the way that that's sort of shifting my perspective. I'm reading Women Through the Eyes of Jesus by Rebecca McLaughlin, and it's just it's really a beautiful book of seeing Jesus and his value for women and the way they lived alongside him. I am reading Black Cake, which I can't do it justice by explaining it, but it's a very good fiction book. So those are a few that I'm reading right now. And that's part of when people are like, how do I read? Read multiple books at the same time.
Yes.
So when you're not feeling like one, you jump to the other, have them all over your house, carry one with you. Then it's kind of like, okay, I always have something that I'm excited about. And listen, Audible.
Yes. You're reading. Sometimes it makes me laugh when you'll post what you're reading, because just with the examples you just gave us here,
like all over the place.
A bunch, yes,
Yeah.
yes, a bunch of different things. What's your favorite? I know you have tons of free time, Jamie. So, what's your favorite thing to do in your free time?
So I really do love to read, and for me, that's a measure of if I'm resting and caring for my body. If I have free time, oh man, I am sitting on the beach by myself with a book, and enjoying the beach.
Yeah, you're from New Jersey, so how close are you to the beach?
Like 40 minutes.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so we're at the Jersey Shore usually once or twice a week in the summer.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm by the Ohio River, and it's not the same vibe.
I know. I don't take it for granted that we are right on the coast. It's a gift.
Your most memorable gift from childhood?
Oh gosh. Okay. I remember waking up, opening all of our Christmas presents, thinking we were done, and then my parents sending me to the utility room for a Power Wheels. So this year I got on a kick that I wanted to get all the kids Power Wheels. And then we realized, like, we literally don't have space to store 5 of them. And some of them are too old. And Alan, like, humored me for a few minutes. And then when we got into the logistics, we were like, this is just not happening right now. But I remember that Power Wheels and just being like, oh, this is so fun. And taking it out and riding it right away.
Fun. I love all those childhood memories. Okay, now this is the last one. Finish this thought.
Okay.
Every child
Is deeply loved by Jesus.
Hmm.
And when we see them through that lens, our hearts are uniquely aligned to his heart. We are called to approach him as children, which means there's something so dear about how children are in the eyes of Jesus. When we see them that way, the behaviors, the story, all of that, like you said, everyone has a story. Like, on one hand, we see all of that so deeply and clearly, and it also just fades away. Like their souls before Jesus of their preciousness. When we're aligned to his heart there, I think we know him in a sweeter and deeper way, and we love our kids in a more pure and precious way.
Yes. When I was having hard times with some of our kids, I would actually go like this.
Oh,
Because, in preschool, we'd put the toilet paper rolls together
love it.
and say they're God goggles. And I would literally go, God, give me your eyes for what
Just
I'm
like,
looking at
yeah,
right now, because I
I
know
love
I'm
it.
not looking at it through your lens. Jamie, thank you so much. And if people want to get in touch with you, fosterthefamilyblog.com, and then also on Instagram, Foster the Family, which I would highly recommend, even if you are not a foster mama. If you have people in your life that are raising kids, this blog is for you, because it gives people proximity to the hard that they might not have proximity. Actually, they probably are close to somebody with it, but
That's
that
right.
person doesn't feel safe in sharing it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree that just being able to hear the thoughts and feelings of someone who you probably have someone in your life with similar experiences, I hope that it serves them.
Yes. Jamie, as we end, is there any encouragement or any final thoughts you want to share?
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast this morning that was sharing just about our hope, and um, we have our hope for today. We have our hope for tomorrow, and then we ultimately have our hope in eternity.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that is the most encouraging thing. It is, it's hanging in my living room right now. Everything sad will be made untrue. I look forward to that day of all things being made new, of standing before God and him wiping our tears away, him wiping our children's tears away. So I think as much as you can in every small and mundane and seemingly meaningless moment of parenting and ministry that you're in today, to remember that it echoes into eternity, that you have 24 hours to impact forever. And we were really invited into using up our days for what matters for forever. It gives hope for today. It gives purpose for the things that seem purposeless. Today is really about eternity. And so look to heaven, look to that day, and live today with that day in mind.
Oh, that is a beautiful way to end it. Jamie Finn, thank you so much.
Oh, so great to talk to you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining me today on Every Child Belongs. If you found today's episode helpful, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. And don't forget to share this with a friend who might need to hear it. Together, we can create a world where every child belongs.